What if I told you the world's factory floor moved overnight? Not slowly, not gradually, but with the force of a geopolitical earthquake that most analysts completely missed until the tremors were already reshaping the global economy. In 2024, India received a record $10.5 billion in foreign manufacturing investment, a 47% surge in a single year. Apple now builds over 14% of its global iPhones inside India, and over 200 of the world's top suppliers have already broken ground on Indian soil. This is not a business trend. This is a civilizational pivot. And today we're going inside the China+1 revolution. To understand where we're going, you need to understand how we got here. For 4 decades, the global economy ran on one unquestioned assumption. China was the world's factory, and that was permanent. By 2010, China controlled roughly 28% of global manufacturing output. By 2015, supply chain strategists at Goldman Sachs were privately calling it a single point of failure, one disruption away from seizing up the entire global economy. Then 2018 happened, the US-China trade war. Tariffs on over $360 billion in Chinese goods. Boardrooms that once dismissed it as political theater suddenly ran scenarios they'd never run before. Then COVID-19 hit. Ports in Shenzhen froze. Container shipping rates spiked over 1,000%. Semiconductor shortages rippled across automotive, electronics, and medical industries simultaneously. The world got a masterclass in what supply chain concentration risk actually feels like. The burning question for every Fortune 500 company became, what happens to our business if we stay concentrated in a single geography that's now a geopolitical flashpoint? The answer changed everything. Most analysts looked at Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Bangladesh, ran their labor cost models, and concluded no single country could absorb China's volume. They were looking at the wrong variable entirely. While they optimized for cheap labor, India was building something far more valuable: institutional capacity. In 2014, India ranked 142nd in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index. Manufacturing was stagnant. Foreign investment was minimal. What followed was one of the most aggressive economic reform programs in any major democracy in modern history. The Goods and Services Tax unified 29 fragmented state tax regimes into a single national market overnight. Business registration was digitized, cutting incorporation timelines from months to 24 hours. Bankruptcy resolution dropped from over 4 years to under 12 months. By 2020, India had climbed to 63rd on that same index, a gain of 79 positions in 6 years. The fastest sustained institutional improvement of any major economy on the planet. But the policy that made global executives truly take notice was the production-linked incentive, the PLI. Rather than flat subsidies that invite rent-seeking, the PLI is performance-based. Produce more, earn more. Miss targets, earn nothing. It filtered out speculators and attracted serious industrial operators across 13 sectors: mobile phones, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, automobiles, solar modules, and more, backed by $26 billion in committed government incentives. The signal to global capital was unmistakable. India wasn't competing on labor cost alone. India was offering a macroeconomic partnership. The clearest proof of concept? Apple. When Tim Cook visited India in 2023, he didn't come as a tourist. He came as a strategic allocator making a commitment. Within 12 months, Apple's India production had scaled to supply iPhones to Europe, the Middle East, and North America. Foxconn broke ground on a massive new facility in Telangana, and then came a move that would have been unimaginable 5 years earlier. Tata Group acquired a Wistron manufacturing plant, becoming the first Indian-owned company in Apple's Tier 1 supply chain. Think about what that means. Tata inserted Indian institutional capital into the most scrutinized supply chain in consumer electronics history, and met every quality, compliance, and delivery standard Apple demands. That single acquisition reframed India's narrative in every major manufacturing boardroom, from emerging alternative to credible partner. Here's the structural force that makes everything else compound: demographics. China's total fertility rate has fallen below 1.1, among the lowest in the world. Its working-age population peaked in 2011 and has been shrinking ever since. By 2035, China will have more citizens over 65 than the entire population of the United States. India is the structural inverse. India's median age in 2025 is just 28 years old. Its working-age population is not just large, it's growing. By 2030, India will add roughly 10 million new workers every single year for the following decade. This is not a demographic dividend in the abstract. It is a compounding industrial resource with no parallel in the contemporary world. And the economic data reflects it. India's GDP crossed $3.7 trillion in 2024, making it the world's fifth largest economy. Morgan Stanley projects $7.5 trillion by 2031. Goldman Sachs forecasts India becoming the world's second largest economy by 2075, and several independent analysts believe even that timeline is conservative. India's rise isn't just economic, it has a geopolitical architecture behind it. The CHIPS Act in the US, the European CHIPS Act, Japan's semiconductor reshoring programs. Every single one of these government-backed initiatives has identified India as a preferred partner ecosystem. India's membership in the Quad, alongside the US, Japan, and Australia, gives companies investing in India an implicit security partnership backstop. When a Japanese electronics firm moves assembly to Tamil Nadu, it isn't just making an economic decision, it's making a geopolitical alignment decision, one its government is actively encouraging, and India brings something no other alternative market offers simultaneously: democratic governance, an independent judiciary, English-language commercial infrastructure, and a 1.4 billion person domestic consumer base that turns every factory into a dual-use asset, serving both global export demand and the fastest-growing consumer market on Earth. None of this works without physical infrastructure, and India has been building at a remarkable pace. India constructed over 10,000 kilometers of national highway per year from 2020 to 2024. That's 27 kilometers of new road every single day. The dedicated freight corridor, a high-capacity rail network engineered for industrial cargo, cuts transit times for manufactured goods in half, connecting Mumbai to Delhi and the eastern seaboard ports. And then there's the digital layer. India's unified payments interface processes over 10 billion transactions per month, more digital payments than the US and EU combined. The India Stack, biometric identity, digital documents, instant payments, has created a commercial infrastructure that reduces friction for business at every level of the supply chain. When a CFO today evaluates India against competing locations, digital infrastructure quality is now a structural advantage, not a liability. Intellectual honesty requires acknowledging the real challenges. India's skills gap is the most pressing constraint. Only 25–40% of its 1.5 million annual engineering graduates are immediately ready for advanced manufacturing roles. Vocational training must scale faster. State-level regulatory variance creates investment risk. World-class facilitation in Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka sits alongside lagging performance elsewhere. And grid reliability, while dramatically improved, still requires continued modernization to support the power demands of precision manufacturing at scale. These are real friction points, but they are the same ones South Korea and Taiwan navigated in their own industrial ascents. They are problems being actively solved. Here is the macro conclusion the data leads you to. The structural conditions for India's capture of global supply chain leadership are in place in a way no previous moment in its history has produced. Geopolitical alignment with the world's largest economies, demographic momentum unmatched by any major rival, institutional reform that has fundamentally altered the investment calculus of global capital, digital and physical infrastructure systematically closing the gap with established industrial powers. When historians look back at the 2020s from 2040, they will identify this decade as the inflection point, not when India became a military superpower, but when India secured the economic architecture of superpower status, the manufacturing base, the technology ecosystem, and the institutional credibility to be an indispensable partner of every major economic bloc simultaneously. The investors who understood China's manufacturing ascent in 1995 and positioned accordingly generated generational wealth. We are at an equivalent moment. India is not asking for a seat at the table. India is building the table. The shift is not coming. It is already here.